Good evening and welcome to the second edition of BINA Urban Talks, titled Stage Nature, the Garden of Good Hope, or Why Do We Stare at Annuals, which we, the Belgrade International Architecture Week, aka BINA, realize in cooperation with the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation from Lisbon, Future Architecture member, and the Center for Education and Culture Božidarac 1947. We are Danica Jovović-Prodanović and Ružica Sarić. We are directors of BINA, and we will moderate this talk.
So just before to begin with the presentation of our invited speakers, just a few words about the Future Architecture Platform for those who are not familiar with this platform. Platform started 4 years ago, and it brings together 26 institutions from 22 European countries who are in this or that way dealing with architecture, with the idea to present visions and ideas about the future of architecture from the standpoint of the young professionals who are just entering the scene and who will be responsible for the future of the built and unbuilt environment that we are going to live in. The purpose of the platform, from one hand side, is to present the selected authors, and on the other hand side, to present them in as much as possible to the big number of different countries and cities. And on the other hand side, also to establish a good relationship between the members of the Future Architecture Platform, and to start some new kinds of cooperation between us members. BINA, Belgrade Architecture Week, was the part of Future Architecture Platform from the very beginning. And during this period, we did several programs within the platform. For the first program was in 2016. It was the exhibition Belgrade Energy Spots. We tried to map some neurological spots in Belgrade, those who need new energy and new purposes. The second event was conference that was organized in 2017. It was titled Belgrade Outskirts Envision Future. And the issue was about the outskirts of Belgrade, outskirts with rural and industrial background, and what is the future of their development. And the third program was a workshop. It was really a construction business. 5 teams were reconstructed, 5 bus stops who were in a very bad state. And it was in one of these remote suburbs of Belgrade. So for this year, we are doing these 5 urban talks. And now we would like to welcome you to the second one, this under the title Stage Nature, which we are doing in cooperation with the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, who is also the member and our partner in this program.
Yes. So within the Future Architecture 2020 program, the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation is developing a virtual exhibition under the title Stage Nature. The Belgrade Zoo Garden will be included as a case study to this exhibition. Francisco Cipriano, our partner from the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, he will tell us more about the project and the foundation itself. So, Francisco.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to participate in the talks. I will be more happy if I could go and meet you personally, but it's not possible for the moment. Just to say a bit about the foundation, we are also members from the Future Architect Platform from the past 3 years. So this is our third project. we decided this year to make a virtual exhibition, not because we were expecting the pandemic, but because that was our idea from the beginning. Just to say a bit about the foundation, so we are a private charity foundation established in 1956. We have a lot of concerns, since the social concerns, but also some cultural issues. So we just go from the social innovation procedures to the museum or to the orchestra. So our range is very, very large. In between, we also have this architectural view, because actually we have with us all the expolio from the 21st century architects, at least the most important ones in Portugal. So with this, we have the responsibility to take care of this material, to show to the public, and to use it as a teaching tool. So that's one of the reasons we are in the platform. It's to make sure that all this material became visible to everybody. And this project that I'm going to explain in a bit is also part of that idea, to show to the public all the material that we have in order to promote architecture, in order to promote the Portuguese architecture. So if you don't mind, I'm going to use a small presentation just to help me and make sure that I don't forget anything. I'm just trying to share my screen. Okay, I hope you are seeing it now. To take this out of here. Okay, as I said, this is a virtual exhibition. It is just not an exhibition, it's a bit more than that. Also because we invite two great teams to work with us, and very different ones that will be very helpful to show the material to everybody. We call it Stage Nature because it's actually something very related with nature, but it's also high. So it's our vision of nature and how we present nature to the public. About our project, we decided to have Raul Lino project, which is one of the most important architects from the 20th century. His professional archive is now part of the Carlos Gulbenkian Art Library holdings, so all the material is with us. It's a very large group of information. It's a lot of drawings, photographs, very different documentation related with the project that he designed between 1902 and 1974. So it's a very large group of material. One of these projects, and probably one of the most known ones, is the Lisbon Zoo. And that's what we are going to work with the Future Architect platform, where we will have this exhibition in the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, probably in our website. We are already working with our creatives, and we would like to have it finished somewhere between 1st of April and 30th of September. We are in a very good speed time, I think, and we probably will finish in 30th of September. So what are we going to do? We are going to do something that is virtual, is an exhibition. It is also a project to explore. So the idea is to explore this project in the very dimensions, and also to facilitate and to promote this interpretation. So it's like going to these old drawings and transform this material in something new that I hope our creatives will explain much better than me during the talk. But the idea it's to put this project something very attractive. Someone that goes to our website in the future can really explore the project, not only how it was, but how it can be in the future. But I promise you, Enrico, that I'm not saying no more. So how? It's a modern display, so it's something very modern. We are going to make it very comprehensible to students, but not only for students, also to the public. We are going to use traditional media. We are going to use videos. We are going to ask people what they think about this. I already said that the frame is the 21st century way of putting animals inside of a city, and a bit to explore the reasons why we still have zoos. Reasons are very diverse. So it's because we need to have tourism, but also we need to take care of the animals, but also because we have to make it more comprehensible to the young public. There's a lot of reasons, good ones, but there's also some other reasons they are not so good. So the idea is to make these confrontations, and we're going to confront this in an architectural complex, this relationship between historical, social, different audiences, different achievements, and different aspirations. We are not making a revolution, but we would like to rethink about the power that architecture can have in this representation of nature. So that's a bit our expectation. To do this, we decide, I don't know if you are aware about the mechanism, but we have always a meeting in Ljubljana, and from applied to the call, we have to choose the creatives to work with us. And we decide to choose two teams. One is País Viagem. Our colleagues are already here. It's Enrico Porfido and Claudia Sani. And they will more related with the investigation of the relations between tourism, landscapes, and more about drawings, more about the, I would say, sorry to use the term, real architecture. And then we've met in Ljubljana some of the two very interesting fellows. It's Arjen and Teresa. This Mies TV, they have more people working with them, but we just have a chance to meet Arjen and Teresa. They are also here with us today. And they work differently because they use video and interviews. So the idea is to make this relationship between these two groups and come up with a very interesting idea and a very interesting virtual exhibition. We already are working with them, so we are. I'm not sure if I can say this, but we are probably in the middle of the work, or even more, and we are very happy with the work so far. With the pandemic, we had not the chance to have them all the time with us. We had planned a lot of visits, but it was not possible. But Enrico was brave enough to come to Lisbon, and he was here with us for some time, and we had the chance to work with him. And we had a lot of online meetings, and we were connected all the time, sending the materials to them to work. And it has been very, very interesting relationship so far. So I'm going to stop where probably they will start, which out of the exhibition. And this drawing was the first element that we have seen, and we were already very happy when we received it. It's a very beautiful piece, and it represents very well what we had in mind. So that's our floor. That's our idea. And I'm here for questions and discussions if you need it, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for inviting us to this talk. I think it's a really good opportunity. It's a pity that we are not physically there. We actually named this talk at the beginning of the program after the name of the Zoological Garden of Belgrade, which translation is, correct me if I'm wrong, Garden of Good Hope in English. And so we wanted to try to apply the same methodology that we are using in Lisbon also during our trip in Belgrade, but we all know how it ended. So we are going to use this opportunity to discuss, especially the Belgrade case. What I wanted to see is that this virtual exhibition, it's created by Claudia Sani and me, which are part of País Viagem, which is a collective of professionals dealing with landscape tourism, local community project, and by Ariane Lehner and Teresa Margraf of Miss TV, as Francisco already introduced. We developed this project all together, so also the presentation will be all together. So we will go one straight after the other, and we are gonna bit spoiler our exhibition for Gulbenkian Foundation, but at the same time, we actually want to guide you through our process, the discussion that we had, especially during the long Zoom meeting and during the lockdown, which has been like the moment of fun for us, also for discussing those themes. So we want to discuss the future of Zoom for our contemporary cities. And for doing this, we're gonna guide you through all our, let's say, mental consciousness as our mental process, and we'll see we can apply it also to Belgrade Zoom. So first of all, what we wanted to, when we first approached the Stage of Nature exhibition, we understood from the beginning that we had a really limited knowledge about zoological garden. But on the other hand, we actually had a really consolidated opinion about them. So as architects, as planners, as landscaper, but also and mainly as citizens of contemporary cities, as tourists, as human beings, we understood that the former model of zoos of last century doesn't have any more space in our contemporary cities. So the main question was, what's next? What's the future of those infrastructures? And to do this, we said, okay, let's try to do a reset. Let's try to take away all the positive or negative ideas about the zoo and try to understand its genesis and how it works and why people in 2020 are still visiting zoo. And this somehow brought us in one of the innermost corner of human being, one of the, I think, the best and worst place ever, which is TripAdvisor. And why TripAdvisor? Because we were not in Lisbon, and so we said, okay, let's try to understand the review about this zoological garden, why people are going there. And we made like some highlights of the best and worst. And there were people that were really happy about the zoo because it was the most human zoo they've been to. Or they were happy because the animals were not overworked. I mean, they're not supposed to work for us, but people are happy and glad about it. And there's somebody that is surprised because here in those zoo, animals are able to live together. What a surprise. But on the other side, there were people that were like feeling bad about paying an entrance fee. Somebody that it's around 140 years old that he said that the zoo didn't really improve from its foundation. That was in 1884. So it means that this person actually had a long life. And then just few focused on one of the main topic, like the animal themselves, how they are treated, the places where they are, if they are lacking stimulation. So it was really funny because we had the opportunity to focus on two main topics, which are going to be like the guideline for this exhibition. There are two concepts that we want to understand with all of you also tonight. It's like why people are attracted or sometimes addicted from exotic animals. So much that they have to go to a zoo to see them in a moment in which, like in a contemporary world where we can actually, well, 2020 maybe not, but we are allowed to travel everywhere. So why don't you see those animals in the real place instead of going somewhere and see them in a cage? So why we are attracted from these exotic animals, and why do we have this feeling, this need of stage them? So why do we need to stage them, those animals, to watch them? And so having this on mind, what we try to do and what the visitor, we hope, will try to do during the visit of our exhibition is like do a reset to clean the positive and negative idea of the zoo and try to build together a critical view based on three main steps, which are the analysis, the observation, and the envision of the future zoo. Because the main idea is that we strongly believe that we shouldn't judge the past with a contemporary eyes, but we cannot even do the opposite. So we try to analyze the past and the specific case of Lisbon Zoo, the present and the future with different perspectives. And to each of these phases, there is a block of the exposition that will correspond. There is the past, there is the present, and there is the future. Sorry. So we will start from the origins, let's say. Now Claudia, my colleague, she will guide you to the evolution of the zoo to set, let's say, the framework of our work.
So, as Enrico said, so let's start from the beginning. So as you can see, this is the definition of zoo that we find in the book. So what it says that zoo is a facility with usually indoor and outdoor settings where living, typically wild animals, are kept especially for public exhibition. So for us, public exhibition is something really interesting, and is what we see in the zoo today. But we question we try to understand with our research why we got there, why zoos are considered for public exhibition. So we will explain you a little bit of history. So the history of the zoological garden is made by a common path between different European and international cases. So its history is connected to a specific verb, and this verb is to collect. So the action of collecting is the starting point of the zoo. And this action has changed meaning through the centuries, at least 3-4 times. So the origins of the zoological gardens find their roots in the ancient Egypt with the sacred lions of Amon Temple, and in China with the Garden of Intelligence, passing through the Persian paradises. So until this moment, the zoo were proper gardens populated by animals, and they were used to study the nature and try to control it. So the first purpose was a scientific purpose. But after this first period, we have already a second period. So starting from the collection of Alexander the Great and Federico II, as many other kings and popes, the idea of collection for the first time changed. So it started the period of the Wunderkammer, so the Cabinet of Curiosity. What is this? The Cabinet of Curiosities is a place where that gathers animals and plants, and this is one is called Naturalia. And you can have also a Cabinet of Curiosity that collects rare objects all together, and this is the Artificialia. So what we can see here is that the action of collecting started to be related to the idea of power and wealth. So we see that it's not just the scientific purpose, but it's also to show the power, like the fact that they can possess animals, rare animals, and rare objects. But another changes, we can find it in the 17th century with the English menagerie, where the animals were kept under observation, as well as with the traveling fairs across Europe in the 19th century. So here is the third changing. So here is where the entertainment phase started. So we can say that we got to the exhibitional part. So, but finally we change again. So at the end of the 19th century, they settled down as in the form of zoological gardens, so the zoo we know today. And they were born as proper institutions where they were these places were supposed to be places for scientific research. But then, because of the need of money, the capitalism, so the need of economic support, they were transformed into thematic parks. So the zoo we know today. So the first conclusion we reach is that in both Western and Eastern culture, both Western and Eastern culture share the custom of collecting animals for curiosity and knowledge, most of all, and also to show power and to entertain. The zoo indeed have two main layers of components. The first one is science, related to the protection and the conservation and education. And the second one is entertainment. So from one hand, they actually continue the research purpose of the original collection, the one we said at the beginning. So the idea of control the nature, to understand nature, to control it, not control it, but just to understand. But on the other side, they had to include a funny part to attract people, and with people also money. So Enrico, yeah.
And so what we saw is that these two elements, scientific and entertainment, are really important also in the zoo of today. And it is what we wanted to analyze also in the different three phases, the past, the present, and the future. So when we arrived, when I was the only one going to Lisbon, but we were all together connected because it's been virtual from the beginning, we discovered that the Jardin Zoologico, the zoological garden, at the beginning was called acclimation garden. It was a place where the behavior of the animal was studied in different contexts and different climates. So we can see that the zoo was actually founded for scientific purpose. The entertaining layer, something that arrived after. And when it arrived when the main architect that Francisco already mentioned, Raul Lino, that is really important Portuguese architect, he did his intervention in the zoological garden at the beginning of the 20th century. And what we found out is that actually already 1 century ago, there was a person there that focused on these two main elements of a zoological garden, the entertaining and the scientific. Scientific because when he was designing those pavilions, he actually relied on experts and biologists in order to define species and to understand the characteristics which were needed for the construction of each animalian pavilion. So there was really a care about the animals itself, the guests of those pavilions. But on the other side, there was like a scientific approach. But on the other side, the way he designed them with those elements, for example, for the zebra pavilion, it was designed with a horizontal black stripe that are typical of the animal. There is also a reference that it's kind of caricatural to the animal. So it emerged the idea that the animals needs to be staged to have fun. So he was not probably joking with them, but those two elements of science and entertaining really are really strong in this project. And what we tried then to understand is like to see if those two elements, how they're lived together. And when we started with Ariana and Teresa, all this process of interviews and to understand which is the rule for the people of Lisbon today, for the tourists, for the citizens, which is the rule of the Jardin Zoologico, the zoological garden, we found out a main point, that I think it's a key point of the expo, is that when Lisbon say the garden, it actually refers to the zoological one. What does it mean? That there is a strong collective memory about the zoo. So people from Lisbon, all of them, they have been, when they were a child, part of the zoo. So they all have memories in this. And there is another point which is really important, is that the zoo is actually considered one of the biggest schools of Portugal because of the educational program that they have. So we can say that somehow nowadays, the Zoo of Lisbon is relying more on this collective memory and the scientific part, the education-related part. But it cannot take off the entertaining related to the architecture and the structure itself. And so what we want to discuss also today is that we considered that this zoo has a great memory value for city. We recognize that the architecture by Raul Lino has an historical value. And we also agreed that the animals, the way the animals are treated today in the zoo is not in line with our contemporary standards of respect, let's say. So what's next? And this is the part that now our colleagues Teresa and Ariane will keep presenting. So I will leave them the floor.
Okay, sorry. So also a warm welcome from me and Ariane. We did a few interviews with a few people, and we talked with them about what nature means to them, what kind of nature they want to see in the future, and also what kind of future scenarios there could be for zoos. And we want to show you just a few quotes to give you a glimpse of that and give you also food for thoughts. So yeah, here's like kind of like the first quote would be that forests and parks are the future and zoos are the past, which is kind of like a drastic one to begin with. So maybe about the definition. Okay. So the definition of nature. Here we have a quote by Pedro, who's a biologist, and he kind of said that humans have a very romantic idea about nature, and he says there's a slight confusion of what is nature. Nature is a messy thing, it's dynamic, it burns, there are floods, the animals eat each other, they are not pets, they are not a controlled environment. And then Lucinda, who's an architect, she said, we have this idea that we can decide what nature can be and we can reshape nature more or less freely. And now maybe a bit about nature in the future. What part of nature do we want to see in the future? Image, do you want to say something about it?
This is a little sneak peek of one of the scenarios that we sort of generated out from speaking with those experts. And yeah, we won't say a lot more about the sneak peek for now.
Okay. Again, a quote by Lucinda, if you want to live, we need to relate in a very intensive way with nature. And actually the picture you saw before is also kind of came from a idea that she said, but it's a different one. And then Eduardo, who's a human geographer, said, I could imagine that in the future you will have more green areas, more plants, because you need it, because people need the presence of non-human beings in their life.
Exactly. So now comes the big question, what is the purpose of a zoo in our future? So we were talking with different experts and with biologists, with human geographers, with architects to ask, okay, will there still be zoos in future and how will they look like? How will they be? And sort of, will there even be animals in zoos, or will it just be digital projections maybe? And we had a very interesting talk with the biologist Pedro Beja, who said urban people have transformed nature into pets. And what he says that the problem is that we take a cat, put it in our home, and the environment of this animal changes. And the natural environment of a cat is not a sofa and a TV, but it's the wild nature. And the problem with zoos in the history was that we only saw the animal as the animal, but not as part of the ecosystem, where the biologists also told us, for example, about the dead forest syndrome, that there are many forests in the world, you go there, it looks completely okay, but in a few decades, this forest will be lost because there are not those animals in there anymore that the ecosystem needs, so the plants can sort of be fertilized and grow the seeds. So by taking out the animals, not only do you isolate the animal in a zoo or wherever, but you also destroy the ecosystem. So it's the idea of that the zoo is then not only a place to preserve and study animals, but to study entire ecosystems and to understand that animals or us humans were all part of a bigger network. And the other interesting thing is that he said even biologists are getting out of the way of nature. That he said that today's work of a biologist is not anymore, unfortunately, so much running around in the wild, getting their hands dirty, but you're in a white coat in a lab with glasses and you check DNA. And he said this is also a problem with technology, that we should not forget to not get rid of nature the more technology we have, so that we don't do the mistake that we say, okay, there is wild nature, then there's a big barrier, and then there's like urban human technology and society, but to somehow find a threshold, which could maybe be the function of a zoo. And where he said maybe it's not the best thing that in future we just look into VR glasses and look at nature, because why do we even then need to preserve nature if we can look at a tree on the glasses? So it's important to not make technology the enemy of nature, but sort of to preserve it. And sort of these were like the forecasts that we found out in interviews with them, and which was very interesting, between like how much is a zoo of the future, a zoo of today, and will a zoo still be seen as a negative thing maybe, or will the meaning be completely different and its purpose? So this was a slight look into the future, and we are very looking forward to like the upcoming discussions with you all.
So thank you. You are in the phase of preparation of the exhibition that is going to be in Lisbon, and we hope that we'll be all able to see it, as it's going to be virtual. And maybe later we can discuss about the possibility to apply the method that you are working on the other cities or on the other zoos. And probably the idea was actually to include the our zoo, Belgrade Zoo, as a kind of a case study also that could be, let's say, compared to the situation in the Lisbon. But maybe we'll have the chance to do it later, sometimes later. So thank you both, and I hope that we are going to go on with our discussion. But before that, our next speaker is coming from Belgrade. It's a group. It's Modern Belgrade, Modern in Belgrade. So here are Dalia and Hristina Stojanovic. This group was started in 2018, and I think that they are going to present what they do and what they think about this topic, about the stage nature. The interesting thing is that this group is organized only 2 years ago, as far as I remember, but they since then had 5 or more exhibitions, and one of them was in the previous edition of BINA in 2019, and we are very proud of it. And the other thing that is interesting maybe to mention is that they were selected to represent Republic of Serbia at the Venice Biennial this year. But as many other things, this biennial was postponed for the next year. So we are looking forward to seeing your presentation next year. But until then, the floor is yours, and let's hear what you have to say.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to participate. We hope to develop an interesting discussion later on, especially in regard to the main presentation. We hope to contribute to this topic, maybe from another angle, which is mainly concerned with architectural tools in visual representation. So we'll start with a presentation, and I hope everybody can see this. Okay. So first, to present the group, as Danica already said, we only gathered together some 2 years ago, and the original plan was actually to launch an online platform that would promote architectural heritage in Belgrade, mainly from the period of Cold War, and to broader public. So our main objective was these important issues outside of this very narrow community of architects, artists, urbanists, and so on, because we found ourselves in an environment that often neglects these issues in any kind of urban development or similar actions. So we are a group of 8 architects, all with interests in visual arts, illustration. Some of us are working on our PhDs that are mainly involved in representation techniques in architecture and so on. Just to go quickly through some of the visuals, drawings that we did so far. As Danica mentioned, we already had 5 exhibitions, solo exhibitions during 1 year, and this was very productive. All of us have very different approaches to these representations, which in the beginning we kind of thought it might be disruptive to the objective, but then we decided to embrace this and actually own it as a strength, and try to use this to make it interesting to a wider public. So in regard to the main topic, we selected some of the drawings to try and, well, develop a discussion later on from this point of view. So this illustration is of Town Planning Institute of the city of Belgrade, which is just around the corner from a botanical garden in Belgrade. And the author of the drawing, one of the members of the group, decided to kind of explore how this building and this architectural urban space would look like if this botanical garden would somehow spread, own the space around it in some kind of a dystopical future or a similar scenario. So this is something that we can kind of relate to the main topic of the discussion. This is a bit more, even more dystopian, but not in a bright and a way like Mirjana did it. This is a conference hall, also in Belgrade, and it is done by Christina. So maybe she can tell a couple of words about it. So
yeah, this is also similar as Mirjana's drawing because it refers to this dystopical future, but it examines how nature will actually kind of interact or maybe even destroy this very important building and site in different weather conditions in different parts of the year. So it's in some drawings it's like damaged by some floods or some heavy weather or some different or maybe by some extraordinary heating during the summer or something similar. So it's a series of some different climatic scenarios.
Yes, both of the presented illustrations are dealing with potential futures of these spaces, which is kind of important. Back to Mirjana, this is another drawing of Energoprojekt building. This is a huge architectural office building, which Mirjana kind of envisioned in the future to be again inhabited by wilderness, by water, by nature, and so on. And so perhaps it might be interesting to discuss that in the future.
Yeah, something like a natural stage for nature.
Okay. I hope you can see this video, that we don't have a problem with that. It's a point cloud video of another building. This is Central Committee building, also in Belgrade. I think we're having problems with that video, so maybe we can skip that a bit. Yes, this is Genex Tower, another building from the same period, built in New Belgrade, which is especially kind of considered to be one of the true socialist modernist new cities, displaying a lot of examples of brutalist architecture. And so this is one example which is completely reimagined and deconstructed, separated into parts, and kind of humorously presented as
one being flooded and the one drowning actually, and the other one
enjoying this enjoying this this flood, which again can be interpreted to be within a future of tremendous climatic changes that can completely flood New Belgrade, and thus giving some kind of a human spirit to these buildings and how they would comply to these new circumstances.
Yeah, but it's kind of satirical.
Yeah. Now we're just gonna again go through some other drawings which might not be directly correlated to the main topic, but just to present our main issue, which is using different drawing techniques in representing these issues and how architecture can actually affect on broader social and political and economical issues, and how people can actually through these interesting methods and illustrations concern themselves about these questions. So this is a comic book, and this is one of the graphic narratives that we used to present our interests and some of the objects. The building in question is the Palace of Federation, which was one of the first buildings built in New Belgrade, and trying to represent the new values of the state. The biggest when it concerns the surface of the building, it's the biggest building in Belgrade. Basically the comic book tells, again, humorous way, a story of this building, again putting some kind of a human character to it, and yeah, trying just to make it more interesting to broader public. And now we have the National Library of Serbia.
Yes, this is also one of my drawings, so I'll just say a couple of words about it. It is this drawing is actually was based and focused on the drawing methodology which was being explored, and it combines analog hand drawing techniques of transcribing some chosen space, which is in this case National Library of Serbia, and the interior of this space, and then trying to combine it and represent it through VR, through virtual reality, and viewing it by using VR headsets. So it's an interesting kind of combination of traditional techniques and some new media that has been is becoming really popular and new and important nowadays in contemporary architecture. So
yes, to go further, this is one of the drawings that uses 3D modeling, but only sampling a particular element of architecture of a certain building. The one in question is a German embassy. And this is an element of the facade, which is then completely put in another context and presented again in a way that is supposed to engage other people in trying to understand the environment they are surrounded with, and that they might not actually notice on regular basis. This one as well, the building that is used to inspire this drawing is the Museum of Contemporary Art. And again, a certain module of the building is used to create the completely new setting. The title of the exhibition was Summer in Belgrade, so this was supposed to underline this, the atmosphere of the exhibition. This drawing is by Snežana Zlatković, which is, I hope I will describe it respectfully, because Snežana is using her drawing techniques and methods directly in her PhD research. So it is an example, besides Christina, how they're connecting science and drawing within architectural discourse. Another thing that we hope to develop later on in the discussion with other participants. What she's doing is that she's certain architectural spaces and then marking them with shapes or color, and then using that to recreate the space by hand drawings, and then later on manipulating them digitally. Mm-hmm. This is another of hers which doesn't include color, which is atypical of Beograđanka, another office building skyscraper in Belgrade. This is another point cloud methodology, yes, of representation. As Christina said, we also try to explore new methodologies of architectural research and representation. This is one of those examples, and can have a very interesting effect in public. And then,
This is not
no, this is another video that doesn't work, but it is supposed to be a GIF, again, using motion and graphic narrative to present something in a very interesting, engaging way to a broader public, but hopefully we'll see it some other time.
So I'll just go through these 5 exhibitions, which Danica mentioned at the beginning. Actually, at the end of 2018, since we didn't get any funding or like
Do you
financial
hear
support
us? We have some problem with the connection.
Okay.
We can hear you, but can you hear us?
Yeah.
Just we have to finish this presentation in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll go quickly through this.
Okay. It's just the 5 exhibitions that we did in the 2019 during the last year. This was the teaser or the intro exhibition at Gallery Collective. We exhibited physical models, which weren't the representations of the actual buildings, but they were representations of our drawings of buildings. The main exhibition was our first one was during the Belgrade International Architecture Week. It was in May 2019, and then there we actually it was our first representation of our work for the public. We exhibited our drawings and the physical models we did before. We did for the exhibition before. Then we had the exhibition in the street gallery, where we illustrated some of the buildings which we made a survey on one of our exhibitions, and we collected like favorite buildings of our audience, and then we did the drawings of them. The audience voted, and then they chose the buildings we drew. This was a very short exhibition. It lasted only 2 days, and it was something we did in November of the same year in the Foundation of Ilija Kolarec. And the last one was in Ozon Art Space, and it was a black and white exhibition. We decided to like get rid of the colors we used and try to represent only our drawing methodologies we developed during this year, and represent the process that we used in producing the drawings. So these are the 5 exhibitions, and we just wanted to mention that we were supposed to do something kind of different for this year's planned Architecture Biennale. It is an exhibition that is planned. We are representing Republic of Serbia, and we are dealing with the topic of a mining town in Serbia, of a small town. It's called Bor, and it's a really interesting landscape and architectural heritage that is combined actually with this artificial nature that is being developed by building this open cast mine. So hopefully you can follow our work online. We will be launching soon our website, and we hope to
Yes.
Okay.
I hope we didn't break the timeline, and
so.
we're gonna stop sharing the screen and give the floor to others.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for future architecture fellows from Open Call. And now we will welcome speakers from Belgrade. The first speaker is Vuk Maric. He is the owner and he's architect and the director of the Archinaut company. Archinaut is established in 2009, and it is a company that is working on the international stage with projects in different areas, including architecture, urban design, zoo gardens, zoo technology, archaeology, and cultural heritage, also sustainability, energy efficiency, and civil engineering. The majority of the projects are in Europe, also in USA, Middle East, and in Serbia and Montenegro. An integrated design is the method that is in the foundation of the Archinaut design approach. So we will hear something more from Vuk. Vuk, where are you?
Here I am. Thank you. Hi to everyone. It is really nice to meet you and to be the one with your project, Future Architecture. Well, actually, my opinion is that is well, all architectures are future architects because we always work for something in the future. Yeah. And this whole meeting is really, I'm really fond of, because it's the main thing is about zoos, and actually I had luck and possibility to work with a lot of projects for the zoo design, and well, I always like to say that we all learn at school to work for just one animal. And actually, when you have the opportunity to work for all the other animals, it's completely different. Like, you need to learn all new schools for every animal you make design for. Well, to make enclosures and exhibitions, as you say. And there are a lot of things I I want to say about everything you said, and especially the first speakers, like first three speakers, about the future of the zoo design and the zoo design itself, and the technology for well, animal enclosures, animal breeding grounds, and well, not probably, but most definitely there is not enough time to speak about everything. But I will try to be as short as possible to just say a few things. Well, first thing about my company, myself, and everything we work on, and we worked and work on, is well, we started working on zoo design at 2009, so it's around 11 years in the numerous projects, zoo gardens, zoo technology, zoo enclosures, and quarantine buildings for the zoos, and about different animals. We had the luck to make around more than 100 objects for animals, and to learn about more than 700 different animal species. So it's a big thing to understand how animals live, how their the families of animals live, and how different animals behave in different enclosures. And well, actually, I will speak about zoo design first, and the legislature, the laws, and the rules for building everything in architecture changed most in the zoo design. much more than in any other design in last 20 years. It was completely different before 2000, year 2000, and after year 2000 in zoo design. It was so much different that almost everything changed. Almost everything, because the animals were looked upon before year 2000 as exhibits, as something to entertain the humans, and after year 2000, it was completely different, because the whole meaning of animals in enclosed space changed, like they were prisoners, or they were not just to entertain us humans, but to live in those enclosures good, and to try to make them feel as much as they are in the nature, or something like that. And the legislature changed a lot. It was such a mess to just try to find the best legislature to make the zoos, because I first started to work on the zoo projects in Serbia in 2009, and I can now just show some things for me also to be a little bit easier to find the fine line to just speak about it, because it was so much projects that I will it would be hard for me to find a right line of thoughts, and it's like this. Just tell me, do you see this presentation? It's zoo design and technology. The first our project was Bird City in Belgrade. It was as I said, 2009, and it was the redesign of the old part of the Belgrade Zoo, which was really, really sad to look upon. It was the bears, the lions, the leopards, and the wolves in the small cages, and it all looked really terrifying. And the Belgrade Zoo wanted to change that in the Bird City for the carnivorous birds. And we made this project. Actually, this project is partially built. And during our time of building this project and making this project something, the legislation and the laws changed. So this project now is not actually the one which can be, which is actually possible to build inside the rules of numerous zoo and aquarium legislations so it's not possible to build, but I love this project. And the second one, which is actually built, is Belgrade Zoo Penguinarium. And this project is, by my opinion, and it's a great success to actually to build something like this in Belgrade, because Belgrade and Belgrade Zoo is not so rich institution. It's actually really poor institution which finances itself from its own income. And this was built for, I think, 5 years. And this penguinarium, which looks really actually exactly like this, it's a great success for the Belgrade Zoo. And for me, the success is that penguins actually, when they were introduced to this enclosure, they almost immediately started making nests, and that's probably one of the best improvements for architect or the one who makes animal enclosures, because when animals start to nest somewhere, that means that they are really happy with the enclosure. And this is the enclosure for bears in Belgrade Zoo. And this is actually built, but not by the project. It looks completely different, unfortunately. Our design method, which we embraced, is that no cages, no nets, no steel bars, just natural materials like stone, glass, and to look as natural as it's possible, but it's not always possible. And so sometimes we need to make nets and sometimes we need to make steel bars. This is the enclosure for the snow leopards also in Belgrade Zoo. And well, Belgrade Zoo have really small space for the animals. So we try to make as much space as possible. So we make the enclosures underground, and we used all the space over the enclosures to make as much space as possible for the animals. And actually, I don't know if you know, but in zoo design, the more important, it's not so important to have a lot of space. It's more important is animal enrichment and the relation between animals and the ones who handle the animals, like the employees of the zoo, and their education of handling the animals and their personal relation with the animals. So you can have the relatively small space for the animals, but if you have enough animal enrichment things, and if you have the good education of the personals of the zoo, then it can all be really okay. So it's all about technology, but not just the space you have for the zoo and for the zoo buildings. This is also the one for the leopards in Belgrade Zoo, and this is not built, but this one before is built also. And this is zoo technology for breeding and animal enclosures, and for the ones who trade with animals. But trading with animals is one of the great or not great, but one of the most profitable areas in economical areas for a lot of people. So it's something we don't want to hear for, but it exists, and it's an extremely big market, because there are a lot of people who want animals for their entertainment. It's not something that I approve, but as a professional and as the one who knows how to handle the animals, I want always to educate, and I want always to make the best for the animals and for the guys who make this, who work with animals. And this is completely different than the zoo. It's technology. It looks more like a prison than like the zoo, but it's our reality, and it's something you always need to understand. And we made some, and these are the cages, and these are the steel bars, and this is the net and everything we don't prefer. but it's the reality. This is the zoo, and this is the zoo we made in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and this is the zoo for the rare animal species, and a lot of species I learned to build in this zoo I never heard of before that. Were probably 85%. I never heard that there are 8 different species of the kangaroos that live on the trees, and probably a lot of you didn't knew about kangaroos who live on the trees. So this is something we made, and this looks more like something natural than the other one. And I also made the standards and guidelines for representation and keeping wild animals in captivity for Myanmar. And actually, I'm really proud of these guidelines and standards, because we introduced first time in the history the optimal in the law and in the legislation, because it's always minimal. It's always minimal in all the laws and all the standards. You always have minimal, and you never have the optimal. And that's why everyone who builds a zoo, everyone who wants to invest to build a zoo, it always looks at the minimal, and it never looks at the optimal. But when you have in legislation, you have the optimal, then probably, I don't know, because Myanmar after that was going into the war and everything, but probably someone will look at the optimal and say, I don't want minimal, I want optimal. So I'm really proud of that. I think that made a difference. And we made this is...
Sorry, we have to short the presentation a little bit.
Okay, I will. And it's just a short, I think this is the last one. And I want to show you the difference between the zoo technology and the zoo itself, the zoo garden. I can show you just after this. Just a second. This is the zoo technology. It looks like computer motherboard. It's technology, and it's all about technology and all about the best working order. And this is the zoo garden, one of the zoo gardens we made, and it looks like a living being. So in this zoo garden, you don't have the nets, you don't have the steel bars and everything, and here is everything about steel bars and everything. So this is the main difference. And there's some things in Belgrade Zoo we made. So I want to join into the conversation about the future of zoos and about what zoo means and how people see the zoos and how children see the zoos. And I just want to say this for the end, and that is when the guy said that zoo have 2 main purposes, and one purpose is scientific, and the second one is entertainment. Well, I want to, during my 10 years of zoo building and understanding what it means, and the people, and a lot of people I knew and I know who are working with animals and zoos and everything, I want to say that one of the main purposes of the zoo is diplomacy. And that's interesting, but diplomacy, because all those animals which we see in the zoos, actually, they are not from the wild. They are, for generations, they are living in the zoos, because the majority of the zoos in in Europe and the developed countries, they, not majority, but 99%, they don't come from the wild. They are long living and generations living in the enclosures, but they represent, and they are like diplomats from the animal world, because the children would not see any of these animals just in pictures. They will see the cat, the cow, the dog, cockroach, and a couple of the other animals. They will never see them in the personal, in person, in space. And well, actually, when we see them closed in the enclosures between bars and everything, that it brings the emotion in us, and we understand and we correlate with the animal world and with the world of the nature. And I want to say another thing, that what is nature? Nature is everything. Even bars and everything around us is nature, because nature made us, and nature is everything around us. Even this human world is nature, but we just are in this period of time when we maybe forgot about a little bit about nature, but it will come back to us. Thank you. That's it. Someone else can.
Thank you, Vuk. Thanks for sharing your experience with project design and design of the zoos. Mm-hmm. And the final speaker is Emilia Vukovic. Emilia Vukovic is an art historian and environmental activist, and she's running 2 different initiatives. But I think that tonight she will speak on behalf of the Wild Belgrade, the citizen initiative, who is actually working to protect wildlife, to promote and protect wildlife in Belgrade. So, Milja, are you with us?
Thank you, Danica, for introducing me, saying that I'm representing Wild Belgrade tonight. I feel honored. I would like, for the start of the representation, to remind us all here that one of the important words in introduction and invitation for this talk was to rethink. I think that we are, as an art historian, I think that we are in a really special and critical times in our species' history. And I think that rethinking, if it's just a little small rethinking, will just not do. So let's be radical. Let's really do something different. So I will invite you to something really different. I think that zoos as cages are not just outdated, but not something that responds to the purpose, to the need that we have at the moment. So I'm absolutely against putting animals in any kind of cages, even though those cages are beautiful cages. Wild animals really should be in the wild. I support the movements like rewilding, which is something that is making wild nature in world re-flourish again, which is one of the possibilities. But still, I think that there is a lot of possibilities in city to get in touch and contact with nature. I have one note to all my colleagues and fellow warriors for nature, even nature in the cities. I read a book called Making Urban Nature, and it was made by architects. And they said at the end that they admitted at the end, when they finished and printed the book, that actually the title of the book is wrong, that it shouldn't be called Making Urban Nature. It should be Enabling Urban Nature. And I think that this word that we have in the name of our talk, which is staged, is also something we could put under question, because it's egocentric. We are the ones creating it. It's like what was mentioned in the beginning, that zoos I think that Claudia said it, things that we saw. And the idea behind it was a really primordial, universal idea of creating paradise. But I really believe that what we should do, and we are capable of doing that, is awakening to the fact that we are already absolutely immersed in nature, which has this paradise kind of idea in it, and we try to connect ourselves with it. So I think that we should completely ditch the second thing, which is entertainment, because we should honor and respect nature and not use it as entertainment. Scientific, yes, and maybe introduce, and that's maybe the part of this radical rethink part. Let's find the second word. Let's ditch the entertainment part, and let's maybe find that the second word is something with healing, something with wholeness, something with deepening our link with nature. Can zoos and nature in the city do that? Can we find a way to do that? So the idea of group, Wild Belgrade group, was to find a way to promote, enhance, give people some kind of directions to how to relate again with nature, connect with nature, how to live on everyday basis, this feeling of connectedness, of immersed, the fact that we are immersed in nature. So not to have this abstract idea of penguins in this or that part, of whales somewhere, or dolphins somewhere, of you know, all these animals far away, but recognize that in my front yard there are 30 types of bees, of wild bees that come. Let's be wowed by that. Let's live that connectedness. So the idea was to, via social networks, so via virtual groups, do something to help people recognize that nature is already there. So what we did, we on a daily basis helped people post all kinds of photos, videos, questions that they had. I will show you now some of them. And after these pictures that I will show you, I will tell you some of the ideas that I have of the ways that we could maybe learn about and understand better and get connected with and love nature already in the cities. As environmentalist, I have to add that I really see a need and a hope for us to relate via our senses, so on a sensorial level, not on an abstract and intellectual level, with the nature already in our daily life. I feel that that's the only way that we will make substantial, radical changes that matter. Otherwise, we will always be like, I should do this for nature, I should do that. This way, when we know that we are one with nature, we know that we have to do it, we feel the need to do it. So now I will just show you some pictures, and I hope that my battery will not die. Share screen. Okay. Share screen. Do you see the screen? Yes? Do you see the screen? Can someone not? Yes? Okay. So I will go to slides. So this is a picture for 2 days ago, and of course it's not native nature in Belgrade. It's some bananas that are growing in the Ada Ciganlija, one of our islands. And someone then posted a picture of banana tree in a very urban area of Block 45. This is a picture of mushrooms from our island that look really crazy. Then sometimes there are questions from people of how to help pigeons, how to help wild bees in the city. There are professional photos, there are unprofessional photos. This is a beach martin that was photographed 20 meters from my home. We are on Belgrade is on 2 rivers, so this is a hoopoe. These are all citizens' photos. This is how nature eats the city in a very good way. there are some like National Geographic kind of moments, some just beautiful moments. We can also share just the plain beauty of nature. Some moments like this that happen every few years. Professional photos, again, sometimes appear, sometimes the place where nature and urban meet, like this, or like this. These are all, most of them are really recent pictures, or moments that are just like a rainbow. It can be, this is also from Belgrade. We have beavers in Belgrade since recently. Nature can be in your building or on your terrace, your balcony. As I said, it can be just beautiful and healing. This is Beljarica, one of areas that should be actually protected because it's lungs and liver of Belgrade, even though most of the citizens of Belgrade don't know about it. As I said, urban and some rare species, black stork, moments like this, where people just stop to appreciate, moments like this, and so on and so forth. So I would stop. I could show you pictures like this for a very long time. There are in this past, let me just find how to exit the share screen. Okay, stop share. Yes. So what I would like to share is some possibilities. First is groups like this, and it could be Wild Lisboa, it could be Wild Paris, Wild whatever, Wild London, of course. And we are on our group sharing all these phenomena that are the same in all of these cities. For example, some of the birds accepted the lightning construction, like the one that you saw, as their nesting places because they resemble trees. There are not enough trees in the cities, and then there are great tits, little birds, who accepted that as their nesting places. So, and that exists in several cities, in many cities in the world. Or many birds of prey accepted tall buildings that resemble cliffs in the cities as their home, as their place where they live. And they are doing, many of these beings are at the same time giving ecological services to the city. If someone likes that, I don't like that term, but it's true. Can we rethink? Can we think of the fact that seagulls are helping lower our methane emissions in the cities by eating the organic food, our landfills? Can we include all that? If we have birds of prey that live in the high buildings, can we make little places? Can architects make little places so that they can have their nests? Can we open certain types of openings for city bats who eat mosquitoes so that they can, so can we not make, but enable and work with the nature? Principal thing in zero waste movement, which I am a follower of, is to use first what you have. So can we first look at the nature in the city and use that nature? So one of the things that I propose is this kind of invitation to the citizens to, on their daily basis, on many different ways, in cooperation with different experts, biologists, architects, urbanists, ornithologists, have the real experience of nature already in their life, not go somewhere to see it, but have that on their way to work. And it can be something very exciting or something very small. It can be something that suits us when we are really sad. It can be something that just makes us healthier. The other thing that I propose are a little bit of a curatorial approach. Can we recognize the places in our cities that have a really high potential and use biologists as curators, as guides? Can we have walks through forests, and even not forests, just in front of your home, you can have a yard with a good biologist that is half an hour of ridiculous amount of beautiful information about your, not neighborhood, about your home. Can we introduce something like that? that the next thing would be a kind of a calendar of events, because I noticed after 5 years of leading the Wild Belgrade group that there are certain things, there are a lot of things that just happen every year. So for example, there is a moment when mother ducks take their ducklings on certain routes through the city. Can we have some kind of participation in that, for example? Or there was a beautiful project of cameras that were put on the nest in one place in Belgrade. There was in several places, actually, secret places, because the citizens shouldn't know, but biologists knew. And there was a streaming throughout the season, through the whole season. We could see the biggest bird of prey that lives in a white-tailed eagle lives in Belgrade, and we could see the moment of preparation of nests, of hatching, of feeding of the little birds, of everything. So can we participate in nature in the city? I'm not against, I'm an art historian, I'm all for, I'm sorry for this noise. There are some very happy kids with a very loud bicycles now passing by. But I'm not against the architecture and what man creates, don't get me wrong. But I'm just inviting us all, since we are in the moment that we live in, can we really just renounce, say goodbye to certain concepts? And can we do much better? I think that our species, so Homo sapiens, is an engineer, and he is compassionate. So there is no problem with technology. But if we link it with the elemental goodness and intelligence that we have, so can we do something really, really different? So I'm not against constructions, and there is a lot of things that can be done, but can we do it radically differently? Please, I would enjoy that. If you read the book Making Urban Nature, there are a lot of ideas. What I saw and some of the examples that I told you about, and there are a lot of other things that we can do. We can adjust the lights that we are using in the city so that they don't perturb bats from going in certain parts of town, so that they can give the ecological service of eating mosquitoes in those parts as well. We can make beautiful urban pollinator corridors throughout the cities. We can rethink the way we make parks. We can think about trees differently. We can see the trees in the city through the myriad of ecological services that they are giving us and all the other beings in the city. So I will stop now. I'm looking forward to the discussion if my battery keeps being alive, and it's close to death. But I'm really inviting us all to cherish and respect the nature in the cities, and observe and pay attention to it, to the thing that is already there, and then make next steps. Let's make next steps, but let's first stop here now, and I look forward to the discussion. I'm ready for the discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you, Milja, for this presentation that you did, and for your very enthusiastic standpoint. We appreciate that very much. So, if I can just resume a little bit what we hear during these presentations, it's really, for me, it all seems like we are having a fantastic group of people who could do a beautiful exhibition all together, because we have really different aspects, different research points. Then we have some really guy who is practicing and who knows how to design the zoo environment in different ways. And then we have very good architects who are really quite well in presentation of the projects as well. And of course, you as a final speaker with good ideas how to present zoology in a different way, and kind of radical and more holistic approach, as if I can say so. So thank you all for now, but Can we start our discussion maybe with Enrico and Claudia, as they started the first? So what are your, I can say, first reactions for the things that we heard? And let's start the discussion if you have some questions and comments.
Okay, first of all, well, thank you everybody for your presentation. It was really nice to listen, and I think we all agree that it was really important to have these two completely different point of view from Vuk and Milia. I think it was really nice to have this really opposite perspective, and I think during our project, during the preparation of the generator, we kind of lack of people like you, Vuk. Like, it was difficult to find people that were actually, I would say, defending the rule of the zoo, and but like just keep these words with the right meaning. So I think it's really interesting, this discussion, because what we try to do is like, what we said at the beginning is like, we try to take off the positive and negative aspect of a zoo. Like we said, okay, we have a zoo, we have the Lisbon Zoo. It's there. We cannot just like bomb it or delete it. It's a physical infrastructure that is part of the city. It has a meaning from architecture, from urbanist point of view. The animals are there. Like, we cannot just pretend to open the cages and let them go, because for example, the lions have been, like, they were born there, and they will not survive in the nature. So what we try to do is like to freeze our emotion, although I think that it's clear that we have an opinion, and try to understand what to do with the zoo of the future. So I have mainly two questions, and it's a provocative. I think we can start a discussion with these two, like to Vuk and Milia firstly, and then we'll go also to Dalia and Christina, right? Am I pronouncing it wrong? Right, okay, sorry. I'm not the one saying that. So to Vuk is like, which is the purpose of the zoo that you are doing? For example, well, I will say first the three questions, and then, so why are you designing workshop? What are you designing zoo? Not, okay, because somebody's commissioning it. Like, what do you think is the function of the zoo today? Why do we need a zoo? To Milia, from environmental point of view, what do we do with the animals that are still in the zoos? It's like, if we decided that zoo is not working anymore, we delay the zoo, well, there are some animals that are just burned. We cannot just pretend to open the cages and let them go, because they will die, probably crossing the street. So what we do with the one there? And also Dalia and Christina, that are probably more familiar with the Belgrade Zoo, with the specific context of Belgrade. If you have some insight, because we have been looking for information for the Belgrade Zoo, but it was not so easy from here, from Barcelona, from Vienna, from Paris. So what the actual situation, what do you propose as a young architect for this specific case?
Unmute. Okay. Well, the first question was, what is the purpose of the zoo in the future? Well, we can all agree. Actually, well, I'm working for the zoos, and I'm making a lot of zoos over the world, and a lot of the enclosures and exhibitions for the animals. But actually, I'm really in love with the animals and with the nature. From my earliest days, actually, the book I was making the sleep with was Brehm, you know, the animals. So I'm really in love with the animals, and actually I think the future of the zoos is our responsibility for the animals which are already there, which are already in the zoo structure, because the majority of the animals, like 99%, their ancestors were living in the zoos for the past, I don't know, 20, 30, 100, more than 100 years. So those animals are the part of our society, actually, with the human society. So our responsibility is to make the enclosures for them, and actually to wouldn't you say that making them not breed and not live, is it wrong or is it good? That's the question. So I think the future of the zoo is the responsibility for the animals which are already living in the zoos, and the main rule, the main thing for the zoo is education. Not well, it's entertainment, most definitely, but the education is probably one of the main part for the zoo. The education of the young people, like you said, every one of you in the Lesbo, you all remember the zoo, and you all remember the education you had in the zoo. And all those animals, they are used to living in those kind of the environment, and these kind of enclosures and everything, maybe to make them better enclosures, maybe to make them feel more connected with the people and everything. So that's probably the way we should think about the future zoos. Well, I agree with you that zoos are the pastime. You know, we don't now hunt animals for the zoos. We don't make them trophies. Well, some of us are doing that. That's most unfortunate, but actually it's something we are all overgrown, though these kind of the opinions. And actually the most thing I have to say is about the integration of the nature in our society and in our urbanism, but it's not the zoo kind of thing. It's more like a nature kind of thing, but I will speak about that later. That's my opinion about the future of the zoos and what we should do with the animals in the zoos. I think we have the responsibility for them, and the zoos should stay, and we need to have the responsibility for these animals, and we need to make them feel better, or some of them are actually perishing because some of the animals cannot live in the zoos. One of the, actually it's connected with my name. My name is Vuk, and it means wolf. And actually the animal which needs the most space in the zoo is actually a single wolf, because the single wolf is a loner and it needs a lot of space. It needs around 1,400 square meters for the single wolf. And for the family of wolves, which is like 4 or more, it only needs like 400 square meters. And that's a minimum. It's not the optimum. Optimum for the single wolf is like 1 hectare. It's like 10,000 square meters. And well, even the connection with that, I really feel sad for the wolves in the zoos, you know. And so some of the animals, they actually really cannot live in the zoos. But the other ones, and ones which are used to, they are already there. And I think there is a good point in saving the zoos, like reminder and everything about that there are those animals, because the children, they will only see the animals on the TV. They will only see the virtual animals. When they are virtual, they are virtual. They don't smell, they don't hiss, they don't roar. They are different than the real animals. When you see the real animal, maybe sometimes you can see the sadness in their eyes. Like I stared in the eyes of the orangutan, and I cried, actually, you know, because there is a great deal of intelligence in those eyes. And really, I felt sad that this kind of human is kept into captivity, but it's the emotion, it's It really can make you do something. It's the emotion which makes you maybe make something for that animal to, like you said, I made those projects because I got those projects. Well, I'm architect, I'm professional. I make the projects for all the things. I will make the project for the prison. I don't approve prison, but when you have the project for the prison, you make the prison. When you have project for the zoo, you make the zoo. That's it. And you try to make it the best for the animals, for the inhabitants, and you try to make it best for the investor. That's the professionalism. That's my opinion, and that's it. Thank you.
Mira, the other question was for you.
Yes, I'm here. So first to mention, it's interesting, we both, Vuk and I, we have wolf in our name or last name because I'm Vukovic. So I'm also for the wolves. So let's do the question that Enrico asked was about what to do with animals that are already there. We went to moon. It's a problem that we can solve. We are capable of solving it. So and I work in public relations. So I'm always thinking of how to explain something correctly and how to involve people. And it's through the stories, actually. We are beings that react to stories. So I think that the whole process of transition from the state we have zoos to the situation that we do not have zoos, or many zoos are closed. That's the scenario. Many things disappeared in our history and were changed for something else. We can lose the zoos or start going in that direction. So let's not breed the animals in captivity and make more imprisoned animals. And let's, at the same time, because we are still viewing our society through this investment and money, and we have to have economy and so on, even though, of course, I think that we have to rethink our economy as well, because the economy of this hyper, super, giga, mega growth is something that economists today say that it's not a model, it's an ideology. So I'm all for degrowth and not growth. So what we could do is, for example, rewilding that I mentioned, it's a different concept of tourism. If you have a rewilding area in the wild, you have parts of it that are completely closed to visitors. Hallelujah, we need that. But there are also an interactive parts where visitors can come and learn and experience in a much better way because they are more immersed in that environment than anything that we can create in our cities. So, and the third thing would be, if we are going through this phase of transitioning, let's see what are the stories that we can say in that time, how much we can milk out that situation. So I think it's an invitation for a creativity. So there are animals already in zoos, there is a lot of them. Let's get into the process of transition, and at the same time, let's work on the next model. And that would be my proposition. I'm looking forward to all the other questions and interactions, just to say.
Can I ask you both just a short question? Because the thing that is bothering me is the situation with the zoos in the urban environment. So both zoos, I haven't visited the Lisbon Zoo, but I was for many times in Belgrade Zoo. So Belgrade Zoo was established in mid-30s, and it was in the environment of the Belgrade Fortress. So I think it's a very small zoo, actually. So if Vuk is talking about enclosure for the animals, and all the time more and more knowledge about the animals and their environment, etc., etc. So how can we deal with the situation that we have zoos in the urban environment? And if you are talking about this transition and about the things to improve the life for the animals, how can we treat the animals in these small enclosures? And what is the proposal for that situation? Do we have to move zoo, or do we have to slowly reduce the number of animals and move to some other ways of presenting the wildlife, and also to educate? If we are talking about the zoos as a place mostly for education, not entertainment, not cheap entertainment, but really education, then if you want to educate, let's say, children or young generations, it's about how animals are living. And if we show them animals are in very small enclosures or behind the bars, so what's the education that we are making?
Okay. Well, that's a good question, and I have the answer. It's definitely the reduction of the number of the animal species, because, actually, many cities, a lot of cities, especially European cities, have the zoos in their urban environment, in the center of the cities. All the European big cities have small zoos in the cities, and the big, as it's called, safari parks around the city. The big ones with like many hectares. Belgrade Zoo have 7.4 hectares. It's really small zoo. It's really small zoo, and it have now more species than it should have. It's really under the minimal requirements for the species. But actually, the new zoo understanding of the zoo enclosures and the zoos is that it's not all about the space and how big the enclosure is, but actually it's all about the connection between the zoo personnel and the zoo inhabitants, the animals. And actually, really interesting thing is that in Belgrade Zoo there are a lot of offsprings, and that's the thing how the zoo is rated. We have lions which really have the small enclosure. They make the offsprings almost every year, and that's interesting. That's how it's rated, that they are actually living really okay in Belgrade Zoo, and they are under the minimum for their space, but they feel good there. Well, probably they will feel better if they were hunting for antelopes and everything, but it's not possible in the urban environment and in such a small enclosure. But my opinion is that there should be reduction in the species in Belgrade Zoo for like maybe 40–50%. So it can be optimal for the species that are living there. There are a lot of cattle or hoofed stock in Belgrade Zoo which actually shouldn't be there, and that's something which should probably be reduced. And actually, my greatest problem is actually beside the wolves. Is the animal, the elephant. We have only single elephant, and that's really bad actually, because elephants are used to live in the family groups, and I'm really sad about our elephant, because it's actually everything about the animals. It's how they live in their groups, or they are single animals, or they are living in the groups. You always have to make the family group, so some animal can feel okay in the zoo, and the single elephant is not good. It's really I feel sad about the elephant, and I will not say about the other species, but I have a lot to say about Belgrade Zoo, and I'm really working with the Belgrade Zoo on improving the conditions for the animals and for some species. Well, I'm really happy that they decided to make much bigger enclosure for the bear. So they will not have small enclosures for the bear. Bear is also one of the species which is highly intelligent and need a lot of space and need that animal enrichment program, which is something which is really important for the zoo enclosures. You should always think about animal enrichment. But I can rate the most important things about the zoo and animals living in the zoo. And the first thing is personnel and their education. The second thing is animal enrichment, and the third thing is the enclosure itself.
Do you want us to answer Enrico's question? Yes, proceed.
Well, because kind of Danica partly and afterwards Vuk partly answered the question about the Belgrade Zoo. It has this very specific location. It is incorporated into the Belgrade Fortress, which is which is the monument with the highest value of protection, and it is quite it is surrounded by the confluence of two rivers and also the urban housing area of the city. So since it is located inside the fortress, it is quite limited in its space, so it cannot expand. Or so to shorten, we just thought that maybe there are only basically two solutions, which one would be relocating it, the whole zoo area, and the other one would be like parasiting or expanding inside the
hypothetical question in a situation where we're not thinking about the costs and the legislation and the laws and everything that Vuk already explained. What are all the constraints and difficulties about improving these conditions? Yeah, the perfect thing would be to actually kind of enclose the entire fortress area and then expand towards the river and then the river islands and all of these things, and then make like an animal sanctuary. But
yes, connected with the nearest like island, War Island, that is also being protected as a natural reserve. So yeah, I think the both thinkings in the context of our country are utopian, also relocating it or expanding it. Yes. So we kind of also posing the same question: what about the future of the zoo?
Of urban zoos, especially, as Danica said, like the zoos that are within urban environment that has special kind of restraints attached to it. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Enrico.
So, any more comments for other Arjen?
I actually wanted to add something. What kind of something that I noticed also from that from the presentations, that a lot of stuff matched what the experts said that we interviewed. That, for example, the enclosures were more like, in the beginning, were more like portraits in a museum, so it was more to exhibit the animals, and then the people tried to make the enclosures closer to the actual nature. And what was also interesting was what Pedro, the biologist, said about the organization of zoos, that it's a very 19th century way of that you present the animals in a zoological way, and it would be more interesting to present ecosystems. And I wonder if who can also say something if there are attempts in new zoos, because we don't know anything too much about that, and that would be kind of interesting. And to the other presentation, also what I found interesting is that Eduardo said in the the geographist who said that he also was kind of critical of zoos, and that he was the one who said that zoos are the past. And then he was talking about that there are like eagles living in the middle of the city in Lisbon. And he also said that if you want to, that the whole city could be a zoo, and that's kind of like what's the nature he wants to see in the future, like this. Yeah, I think that's, yeah. And what I also want to mention, what could be interesting, is that zoos also have this function, or like that's also what Pedro said, that to work against extinctions. So zoos are also working with certain programs and also exchange animals, and to also preserve a kind of diversity. And there are programs also where you can then later maybe even introduce offsprings like slowly back into nature, and like they're working on these programs. It can also be interesting. Yeah, I want to mention that also. Yeah.
You cannot put everything in one perspective. There are a lot of perspectives, just like everything in life. And actually, your question about how to integrate the nature and how to integrate the zoo, not zoo, but the animals and everything in our urban environment. Actually, that's something I really thought a lot. You always see problems. We all see the problems with our society. We all see that we are producing pollution. We all see that we are overpopulating. We all see the problems. But if you put the problems like the solutions, and you try to find the ways that those problems work for you as solutions for something else, then you change the perspective and you start to use the perspective which our planet is using, because our planet is not wasting anything. The ecosystem is not wasting anything. Everything is some kind of a potential. And if you look at the pollution, if you look at the overpopulating, if you look at everything we are producing as the potential, then you are starting to use the philosophy of our ecosystem, of our planet.
I think it's a great project, and I think that we can have a chance to present it to us when the project is finished and maybe published. So we are really open, and we would like to have a presentation and maybe a lecture or maybe even a round table about it. But if there is any other comment of our tonight's speakers, or maybe the members of the audience that are still present and still with us, we'd like to hear, because we are about to end this discussion. And please, any comments or questions for our speakers or for any of us?
I would just like to add, if I'm still, yes, I'm here. So this way that we see things, that is actually not related to the whole that we belong to, we lose that. We lose the consciousness that we belong to the whole. So we just think about ourselves, and I think that's something that we should put in question and check all the time. Are we just ourselves, and are we just taking our point of view, or are we open to the whole that we belong to, the system, the fantastic system that we belong to? And the second thing is about modesty. Do we still have something to learn from nature? Are we pupils, or are we the great creators? And I think that only as pupils, we are in our life and in the cities or whatever we are doing, really capable of the precious process of learning. So I would invite us to have questions and not all the answers immediately, and to feel that we have something to learn from nature.
To just make a little comment, maybe if there is not time for more questions, both for Enrico and Claudia, and then Ariane and Teresa. we were very, very interested in maybe more the media you use than the core of the talk, which is the drawings and the collages and the montages and everything that you use as a way to represent your results of the research. But again, that might be another huge topic that we can follow up in the days that are following days. So we might not want to start this discussion now. But I would like to continue it in the following days. Well,
thank you all for participating in this Urban Talk number 2. We would like also to thank to our patron, the Creative Europe program that made the Future Architecture platform possible, to our partners from the Kaluz Gulbenkian Foundation, from Božidarac 1947, and of course we invite you to be with us and to follow us on the Urban Talk number 3, which is soon to be on 26th of September, and the topic would be completely different, but close to the education, because we are going to speak about the children's space and how children are imagining their spaces and what's the space for children in the future. So thanks again, and hopefully we'll stay in touch, and we are looking forward to the virtual exhibition Stage Nature.